What is up? Wednesday night, September 15th. We are going to be on fire, not literally on fire, but Wednesday night is going to be on fire. You're going to love it. Going to open up our theme music real quick for the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Give us 20 seconds, and you're going to hear why.
Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve podcast with your hosts, Jason Balin and Ian Horowitz.
You don't want to talk now that the music's over? Muted yourself? You're like, that's it. We have all the fire that we need.
No. What up, man?
No, what's going on?
Nothing. I'm telling you, man, that opens, slows down my computer sometimes. I don't know when it freaking ends. But it's all good. It's all good. Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Monday, hopefully everybody enjoyed their weekend. We're going to have a little fun today. It's a little promo of our meetup group that we're doing this upcoming Wednesday. And we're going to be on fire Wednesday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about title companies. We have an expert title company that concentrates on investor transactions coming in to speak from Blake from Legacy Settlement Services. So I'm really excited about that. So, you know, a lot of people might not think talking about title is the most sexy topic. Everyone wants to talk about, hey, how do you find deals? How do you find money? How do I make $1 million? But it all goes together, right? Number one, having a good title company is part of your success team. Ian and myself have both worked with lots and lots and lots of different title companies. I've probably worked with hundreds of different title companies. So I can tell you from experience that there are certainly good ones and there are certainly bad ones. And you got to make sure you have the right ones in place. And the right title company might not necessarily be somebody who has the cheapest prices or kind of the most services. It's somebody who is, number one, they have to be investor friendly. They have to to understand the investor transaction and have experience dealing with investors and distressed sellers and short sales and hard money lenders or private lenders, because so many of them don't. And let me tell you, there's times that real estate investors will come to us to do a loan, and I cannot do a loan for them if they don't have the proper title company in place, the right title company in place, because the transaction won't happen. They won't understand it, right? It'll be treated as a consumer transaction, or they'll overcharge the borrower because, you know, they might think you're selling it as a primary residence and potentially withdraw funds from it. So you got to be very, very, very careful on that. So what we wanted to do today was maybe a few case studies related to how inside our business, a proper title company, maybe not saved the deal, but helped with the deal that might have not been done without it. And, you know, on Wednesday, we're obviously going to be talking to the guys over at Legacy Settlement Services, but I'll be the first one to tell you, and they'll probably be the first one to tell you, that it doesn't matter what title company you use, as long as they understand the transaction and you have a good relationship with them, right? Like, this isn't a promotion of one title company. We've talked to lots of different title companies. We talked to lots of different appraisers, lots of different real estate agents, lots of different everything. So it's not like, oh, you have to use them. This is the only one in the world that you have to use. It's not like that. The point is you got to use somebody that you're comfortable with, but understands the transaction. And a big part of this, and one of this, and this isn't a promotion for their company either. A big part of this is tell us, you know, what to look for in a title company as well. Because just like anything else, like if I don't get along with somebody, they don't get along with me as a lender, I don't want them to use me, right? I want to hopefully I can win their services, but if I can't, or win their business, but if I can't, that's fine. So a big part of that is like what to look out for when working with a title company.
Yeah, I would say before we get into any case studies, I would say there's probably three major points that everybody wants to look at when choosing a title company. And again, obviously we love Blake and his title company, but we use a bunch of them because it becomes deal specific, especially if you start operating out of state in different asset classes. So one of the first tips that I would say you need to look for is to find a title company that understands the transaction that you're trying to complete. Some title companies don't like wholesale deals. Some companies can't handle a commercial deal with certain types of title exceptions. Some title companies only handle residential type stuff. So make sure you know what your lender requirements are. Make sure you know the transaction that you're completing, and pick the right title company from there. Number two, the second thing, another tip that you want to look for before choosing a title company is make sure you have a good relationship with the person, because in the end, they're going to be managing the seller and the buyer. So depending where you are in the situation, you want them to be able to manage it. If you're selling a property, you want someone to come in there and manage the buyer and force the hand, not allow them to extend, keep the foot to the floor, and get it done. In the opposite, if you're the buyer, you want someone to manage the expectation of the seller, keep them under wraps, keep them calm, cool, and collect. If something goes sideways, have a good, reasonable explanation for it, get you the extensions that you potentially need, and walk you through that whole process. And then the last thing is making sure that it's a title company that's legit and issuing you title insurance, as well as managing all the money. I mean, we're talking about potentially millions of dollars being wired. In the end, they're actually acting as a fiduciary. So you want to make sure it's someone that's credible, that you know and trust, that you're going to get your escrow money back, and all those types of good things. So in the short term, I can tell you, just going back to the very first point, here's a deal that we had that closed last year. It was on a Ranson, West Virginia apartments. And in West Virginia, they have, most of West Virginia, right, is a big mining country. So mineral rights is a big issue out there. Well, the original title company that we had closed the property with was just a residential title company, but we didn't think twice about it because we paid cash for the property up front. When we went to go refinance it, we were using a life insurance company. They had a lot of specific requirements with commercial type requirements. They had a bunch of different alter requirements. Well, one of them was the mineral rights. Well, they couldn't get the title insurance company. And if we're talking Spanish to you, we'll get into all this Wednesday night, but they couldn't get the title insurance to take that exception because they weren't used to dealing in commercial real estate and pushing up against the title insurer to ultimately waive the mineral rights, because we were in a part of West Virginia that there's not a lot of mining. And it became a whole thing. The transaction almost blew up. We had to pay extra fees to extend our loan commitment because they couldn't get it done. We had to switch title companies mid stride. We had expectation with our investors and paying them off through this refinance. It was a big mess. And that was the first time that it really hit home, because we have it so good here locally in Baltimore with our guy who handles both buyers, sellers, commercial and residential. He runs the gamut. Not every title company is built the same. So that's something that you want to look out for you. How about Jay? You got any good case study?
I see them all the time. I'm not going to call out any online auctioneer companies, but if you've ever bought a property from an online auction, you've probably been steered or incentivized to get your owner's title insurance waived by using in-house or preferred title companies. It's funny, actually, as we've been talking, I'm taking a few notes because I want to make sure we bring this up to the whole group on Wednesday. As well when we talk to Blake, to hear some of his thoughts on some of these things. But so for instance, it's like they're not waiving all owners' title insurance policy using some of these in-house title companies. They're giving you a break. It's a few $100. A few $100 is nothing if the transaction falls apart, and it's a pain in the neck anyways. And a lot of these transactions do fall apart because, number one, the title company is the hub of this. They don't represent you. They don't represent the seller. They technically are the middleman to help facilitate the entire transaction, at least in most of the states that we're all associated with. Different areas of the country are set up a little bit different, but in all the areas that we're kind of all in, they're the hub, right? So they have to work with the seller. They have to work with the buyer. They have to work with the lender. They have to work with the city, and in order to make sure utility bills are all put together. Also, they got to make sure they're working with other title companies to get proper releases and things like that. Real estate transactions move fast. That's the most important thing. They got to move quick, right? Now, in essence, like you're not buying a property from a distressed seller, especially in today's real estate market, and settling in 30 days or 45 days or 60 days. Like, chances are it's unrealistic. You want to move as quick as possible. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that could prevent a title company that's not their fault from moving quickly, like a lien sheet or a past release that they're working on. So it's important for your title company to obviously set proper expectations, right? Like Baltimore City takes longer than potentially Howard County does in Maryland. It just is, right? So it's important to make sure on this. So anyways, let me give you an example of some of this. So we did a deal on using, it was an online auction company. They use their in-house lender. Do you see my thing flickering in?
Yep.
God, it's so weird. So you can see that too. There you go. I just have to like flicker my webcam and it works. So they did a deal. They use the in-house one. I've seen it happen 100 times, right? Hundreds of times that this happens. And I'm telling the buyers, like, listen, it's not going to be worth the $400 you're saving to not try to use your own title company on this. I know they want to use them, and they're like, well, they were scared that the auctioneer might blow up the deal and not move forward, but whatever. That's fine. We went through it, and I've seen dozens and dozens of issues with these. The most recent one, which was crazy, was they closed the loan. They closed the transaction, right? They bought the property on a Friday. We funded the loan on a Friday. No big deal. They couldn't get into the property, right? They had, they were expecting to get the keys, get everything situated, get their contractors on moving as soon as possible. Their contractor bid on the job. They're ready to go. Monday morning, contractor was there. They couldn't get into the property. They called their rep and they were like, oh yeah, we have to wait for this now or this now or this. Well, it took 2 weeks to start construction. It took 2 weeks to get into the property. They spent 2 weeks. They paid 2 weeks of interest. Their contractor that they had lined up had to leave to go to another project. They couldn't get him back. So they didn't even start the construction for a month until this guy can move back. They lost 1 month of interest payments. They lost 1 month of everything just because the title company, just because they use that title company. And that might be an extreme case, but and again, we're not going to go through 10 different case studies related to good and bad. We can share that on Wednesday with these guys, because I'm sure Blake and his team at Legacy have seen all kinds of stuff. But the point is you got to have the right title company, and they're not all the same. And it's easy for me to say it because we'll do 25 or 30 loans a month, right? So I see what happens, and it doesn't affect us as the lender all that much. I mean, it does a little bit, right? Because the borrowers are upset about it. But I see the difference between the good ones and the bad ones. And I mean, think about it. When we had bought, we were on a buying spree years back. I remember our title companies used to talk to the seller. If we had to go over our timelines and we couldn't close quick enough, the title company would say, you know what? Even if it's not my fault, and I'm going to get screamed at, I'm going to call the seller, because I have a relationship with Jason and his team, and say, hey, listen, we need a little bit more time to get all this stuff together. We'll get it done next week or something like that. And it was fine. And they put the blame on themselves, even though it really wasn't them, to make us as the client look good. It goes a long way.
And I think that's very important, both as the buyer and seller side of the transaction, is that once you're in contract to buy something, as soon as if it's a title company that you trust, as soon as you can get the information of the seller and kind of remove the broker, who's kind of like the third party, and then you got broker talking to broker, that you got this whole convoluted transaction. If you can just get direct to the seller, at that point you can start to diffuse the situation, and I think that's very, very important. I'll give you another reason why you need a good title company, and I just thought of it because we were talking about ideas for Wednesday night, and I'll share this case study Wednesday night. But we had a buyer actually default on us on a commercial transaction, and had the title company just done what they wanted, or they followed what the buyer wanted because they had choose the title company, and he just did whatever his buyer wanted because he had a pre-existing relationship, we would have been out the defaulted deposit money. And I'll get into the specifics Wednesday night. But he followed the proper process, and we actually just received our deposit from the court system. So again, this is why you need to have a good title company in place. They're a representation not only of you, but also of the whole transaction in general. And the other thing you need to remember, as the buyer, you get to choose, but also as the seller, you have the right to have your attorney or title company or anything else, whatever you want to call it at that point, review everything else in the transaction to make sure that you're properly represented as well. Because a lot of people get confused with the law side of things and the title side of things. Because in the end, the title is supposed to be an intermediary between the two. And then there's the two lawyers behind the scenes that are going back and forth through this third party. Just a lot of the times, the lawyer sometimes acts as the title company as well. And that's where there could be some confusion. So,
and one thing, and title companies or attorneys might not like my opinion on this, but it is what it is. I believe that if you are doing a transaction that requires legal work, I try not to mix the legal work and the title work together. It depends on the situation. A deed prep or something simple, and I know Ian might not like this either, but like if you're, let's just say you're doing a private loan for somebody and you're a lender, I probably wouldn't have that title company doing your loan docs and the title work on the transaction. Correct. And representing you as a lender, title insurance. And that's my opinion on it. It happens all the time. And I understand why, but it's two different services. It's not a conflict of interest. That's not the right term. It's certainly not. They can do it, but there's the title insurance and then there's the legal, the legal work associated with it. So, we have, I don't have an in-house title company. Everyone's like, well, what title company? I mean, I'm comfortable with who you want to use. Obviously, it is important to make sure they're writing through a real title insurance. And we can bring up Jod's question real quick: what insurance company used to refinance apartments? And it depends if you're asking for the actual insurer or the title company, which is the writer of the insurer. So, like for instance, a title company, typically they're not the insurance company. They're just it's just like, an insurance broker or title broker. They're putting everything together based on First Americans or Chicago's or Fidelity's requirements. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of our opinion on it.
Well, and you can see the big difference between me and Jason here, and this is what makes it fun, especially on like Wednesday night, where we can really start to deep dive. He's a lender; he's looking for all these different things. We're more of the investor, saying, okay, well, this is what I'm trying to do. Because in that same situation, if I have one of my private lenders come to me and say, yeah, here you go, you want to use our title attorney? Here's a note that's been prepped. Let's go. But it's great to see both sides of the conversation and how both sides actually work in one transaction and have different needs and requirements from the same service provider. And they're completely different. And I'm sure Blake will talk about it Wednesday night, just a list of stuff that comes in from lenders. And I'm sure Jay can expand on it more on Wednesday night as well. It's just like the different list and the different requirements that I have versus what my lender has, and what boxes they're checking versus what boxes I'm trying to check a box to close a deal. I don't care what you got to do. Make sure I'm protected. Jay's over here saying, I need all these boxes checked because God forbid something goes wrong. Well, I want to make sure I'm covered,
Well, we need an attorney to represent us with the title company. I mean, right. I'm not saying I don't deal directly with the title company. I do, but we have an attorney that's reviewing title, making sure our lender's title insurance policy on the lender's side is the best it can be, right? Because, the title insurance, you're not getting represented. Remember that the title company is not representing anybody. They're providing insurance. And I'm not saying that a title insurance owner and lender, and again, I'm not stating, and there's the facilitating the transaction. I'm not saying they're not trying to provide the best one that they can for you. That is what they're trying to do. But again, I've done 3,000 transactions. I'm not an expert at the legal side of title. I want an attorney to represent our lender, my lender hat interests. And, I would think, potentially, depending on you as a real estate investor and how sophisticated the transaction is, you might want somebody as well to take a look at it and, your owner's title insurance policy and see if it's, suitable. And especially kind of the smaller transactions, they're a lot easier, obviously. There's just less stuff. But certainly on big transactions, it makes sense. Let's see what else John wrote on here. Can't wait till Wednesday. On fire, baby. Wednesday. Hardest thing right now is recording in the city and the county. It takes up to 6 months to record. Yeah, so that's a good point. And I'm going to write that down because I want to talk to them. That leads me to one other point I was going to bring in. We can talk to those guys, recording time frames and issues. Because I'll tell you another situation that's happened before. We closed a loan in Prince George's County. The borrower closed the loan, right? We recorded a deed of trust. The borrower, I should say real estate investor, sorry. The real estate investor bought the property. We were the lender. The real estate investor got the deed of the property. Hard money bankers got the deed of trust, which is, the recording instrument to show that we're the first lien. The title company facilitated it. They got everything done correctly. They went to go put it on file, right? These days, since COVID a little bit, some of these jurisdictions have been doing stuff digitally, which helps timeline because that's where your risk is if you can't get these things on title quick enough or on record quick enough. So anyways, it was PG County. It was years back. They were backed up. The real estate investor flipped the house before the property was on record, right? He flipped the house before it was on record. The next title company didn't know that it wasn't on record, right? So he sold the house that technically he didn't even own yet, really. I mean, he did own it. I shouldn't say technically, but on paper, on recording, he had it. And he sold the property without paying us off as the lender, right? So again, title insurance covers all of that stuff, right? So we were covered. It's a pretty easy title insurance claim that's a fraudulent transaction, right? It didn't pay us off, right? So, but the point is, you want, keep in mind what happens when someone has to file a claim or go something. Sometimes there's a lawsuit that has to happen. It's not just filling out paperwork, right? If typically most people are used to an insurance claim where it's like, oh, cool, I'm just going to fill out a piece of paper and I'm going to put in an insurance claim for a few $1,000. Well, if you put in an insurance claim, doesn't matter if it's a homeowner's insurance or title insurance, and it's a high dollar figure, it's not like, oh, cool, hey, I'll give you your money. A lot of times you got to hire lawyers and it takes money and it has costs. And you got to file a lawsuit to do some of those things. It all costs time and money to do that, right? So the important part is like, having the right parties in there. I mean, there's been probably 10 occasions over 3,000 loans that somebody sold a property and didn't pay us off because it wasn't on record before. Like, you think that wouldn't happen? That happens. There's times that we've done loans for people and a year later they went to go sell the property and they found out they weren't on record yet. The deed wasn't on record, right? So they're going to sell the property. It's a few days before closing. Title company calls them back and says, wait a sec, you're not even the owner of the property yet. We got to get your deed on record. They go back to the previous title company. It's in limbo, right? Because it's at the recording office. What do you do in that case? These are all things that are manageable, but you got to understand them because they happen. And let me tell you, when they happen the most is times like now when the real estate market's crazy and everyone wants to rush. So the point is, it's not to scare anybody, but it's real. It's reality. Shit like this happens.
Yeah, man, definitely. That's all things that happen. Sorry, I was reading one of the comments, but we're going to extend this conversation Wednesday night. Jay can tell you the best place to find them. If you're on our email list, you'll get an email about Wednesday night. I guess I should probably update my website so people can sign up for our mailing list so you can get pertinent information. If not, you can check us out over on meetup.com. Hard Money Bankers. There you go. Jay's putting it in the link. You can go right on there, get the information, sign up. We'll start promptly at 7 o'clock. 7:15. We'll start promptly. So, we'll start promptly at 7. So all the late people can show up at 7:15 and go from there. And if you guys, we do this one on Zoom because it's our meetup. It's way more interactive. Chat questions. We'll bring people on live if you want to ask questions directly. Because you know what? Me and Jay always have a lot of questions, but, we want to serve the audience. And the audience, if you guys have any questions, I'm sure other people have the same exact question that you're thinking. So we like to bring people on live and get into some case study and have some discussions all around, because not only are the experts there talking about it, but there's other people that have real world experiences that will be sharing their experience as well. So everybody can be talking back and forth. So bring your beer, bring whatever you like to drink, just like we would do in person. And we'll be doing our meetup on Wednesday night at 7:15. So we'll see you guys there. If you get there early and you're sitting in the waiting room, we will let you in as soon as everything is set up. So,
all right, guys. See you on Wednesday night. The link is in the comments section.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for